Hi everyone, my name is Allison and today I'm going to be doing my presentation on female filmmakers. The film industry is one of the largest sources of entertainment in the world. The industry produces thousands of films annually and rakes in billions of dollars in revenue. When looking at the surface of the film industry, we really don't see how much work and talent goes into producing and writing brilliant films. I noticed that directing is a very male-dominated industry and was curious to know why there aren't as many women in the profession getting the same praise and attention for their work. Not only do we see this in the film industry, but also in many other career fields. It can often be discouraging, and it's valuable for us to understand and share how important female representation is and how to empower and encourage others to break through boundaries. So today I wanted to explore the question, what is the importance and influence of female directors? So let's begin with a brief discussion of the history of film. The movie industry originated in the late 19th century through a series of technological developments. Those included the creation of photography, the discovery of illusion of motion, and the study of human and animal movement. From these developments, the idea of motion pictures becoming part of the entertainment business first emerged. The way we watch films nowadays is drastically different from the way films were initially made to be shown. In 1891, the inventor Thomas Edison, together with William Dickinson, came out with what they called the kinetoscope. The kinetoscope was a cabinet with a window through which individual viewers could experience the illusion of a moving image. Edison is credited for being the first film director. With the rise of a popular and competitive industry, more people began creating and sharing their own films. As there was a growing interest in watching and creating films, more and more people gave it a chance. From the earliest days of Hollywood, women directors have been staggeringly outnumbered by men. As this is the case, the first female director managed to be partially erased from film's history. Alice Guy Blanche was a true pioneer of early cinema. Having made more than 1,000 films, she is not only credited as the first female film director, but also the very first to make a narrative fiction film. From 1896 to 1906, she was most likely the only female filmmaker in the world. She was largely erased from film's history in favor of her male contemporaries, including her mentor and her husband. Though she tried to reclaim her reputation during her own lifetime, she died in 1968, and while her name was swept under the rug, there were a lot of men who took credit for her work. For so long, women being filmmakers was simply part of the norm, yet around the advent of sound cinema, female participation in filmmaking began to drop, and the numbers have dipped immeasurably in recent decades. Despite evidence showing that audiences respond equally to films irrespective of a director's gender, why is it crucial we have more women directing films? The importance of female filmmakers is about encouraging a diversity in our cinemas so that not only will women create the kind of films that are more accurately portraying female characters, but so will everyone else. The number of women in businesses like filmmaking is growing, and we need to encourage those numbers to keep growing. Likewise, we don't get mainstream movies and TV shows that accurately represent female perspectives and roles. Female filmmakers do a great job of creating stories to fill this void. Not only are female characters underrepresented, they are grossly misrepresented. But of course, every director should be judged solely by their work, and not by their work based on their gender. Hollywood is supposedly a community of forward-thinking and progressive people, yet this horrific situation for women directors persists. Gender discrimination stigmatizes our entire industry. Therefore, change is essential, and gender-neutral hiring is essential. When talking about the need of change in the film industry, director Lulu Wang says, "Box office is proving that telling stories from different perspectives is what the audience wants. Audiences are demanding different stories from different perspectives, and that is the driving part of the change." According to a new study that examined last year's top-grossing films, it's not only important to recognize the need for women behind the camera, but it's important to hire women in all steps of the creative process to make sure you're getting a balanced perspective. The film industry needs more female directors, screenwriters, producers, and top executives from all walks of life in every corner of the world because the world needs inclusion, diversity, and wide-ranging points of view. Change can only bring to better films, stories, and a thriving industry. Overall, having more women behind the camera not only results in more unique films, but it leads to a range of different occupational opportunities for others. Now, a big aspect in films when it comes to creativity and delivering a message is storytelling. The way stories are delivered through films can have powerful impacts and messages meant to be left for the audiences. And a quote by writer Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie from her TED Talk, "The danger of a single story," she says, "How stories are told, who tells them, when they're told, how many stories are told are very dependent on power. Power is the ability not to just tell the story of another person, but to make it the definitive story of that person." Now, this is a great quote when it comes to the discussion regarding female perspectives in stories. Storytelling perspectives are informed and conveyed by producers, writers, directors, and actors. Yet, female storytelling tends to bring a unique point of view to their stories. Based on their different life experiences, they are able to inform their stories and the lens with which they view the world. More female storytelling would diversify the cinematic landscape. One study examined 900 motion pictures, including the number of women working behind the camera and on screen. The results demonstrated that the greater participation of women, the more thought-provoking and less violent and fear-inducing this resulting cinematic product was, and because female characters are often over-sexualized, it was worth noting that the same study found sex and nudity do not, on the average, boost box office performance. Now the question may arise, if there are plenty of talented women who want to make films, why aren't there more female directors? Well, the list goes on and on. For instance, people in the industry tend to recruit to their own image. The majority of directors are male, therefore hiring men. Directing has not been a role where women have seen other women role models. Money. Getting it, keeping it, and putting it on screen remains one of the biggest barriers that female directors confront. It's also challenging to entice studios to take a chance on first-time directors. There's a lack of faith in women candidates in comparison to their male counterparts. And finally, stereotypes about women's skills and ambitions are a powerful barrier to entry. The misconception that women are best at directing personal stories about women in romance excludes them from opportunities to direct genres associated with men. Despite the countless challenges that female directors are facing, let's take a look at a couple statistics regarding female participation in the film industry that proves they're still taking initiative despite the challenges. While the roles may not be equal to their male counterparts, there is an impressive increase in numbers. So based on the top 100 grossing films in 2019, women represented 23% as editors, 18% executive producers, 25% as producers, 2% as cinematographers, and 20% as writers. Women also accounted for 12% of directors working on the top 100 grossing films in 2019, which is up 4% from 2018 and 8% in 2017. On the topic of taking initiative, Academy Award-winning director Catherine Bigelow says, "If there's specific resistance to women making movies, I just choose to ignore that as an obstacle for two reasons. I can't change my gender, and I refuse to stop making movies." There are now multiple worldwide initiatives geared to increasing the numbers of female directors, as well as writers, producers, and cinematographers. One brand new talent discovery solution is Free the Work, launched by director Alma Harrell in October 2019. Free the Work is a curated talent discovery platform for underrepresented creators. The initiative has had enormous success, increasing the number of women directors at some agencies by 400%. Other examples like this include the Topple List, which is a Google spreadsheet for women, people of color, and disabled filmmakers. And in response to the statistic that women directed just 4% of the top films from the past decade, USC Annenberg Inclusion Initiative and Time's Up launched the 4% Challenge. It's a campaign aimed to increase the number of women, especially women of color, directing major studio films. This challenge asks producers and actors to commit to a women-helmed project within the next 18 months in an attempt to bolster numbers. Major studios like Working Title and Universal have now signed the pledge. And finally, several film festivals are specifically focused on promoting female filmmakers, including the Cairo International Women's Film Festival in Egypt, the China Women's Film Festival in Hong Kong, the Seoul International Women's Film Festival in South Korea, and many more. And in France, Organisation Le Collectif 50-50 is working to ensure that male and female directed films receive equal footing at all film festivals. Before we wrap things up, I wanted to introduce a few talented female directors who are advocates for female directing and are taking the industry by storm. I highly suggest that you check out their work as their films are excellent. On a final note, I wanted to discuss how in our progressive society, we are learning the importance of implementing diverse and multicultural groups of people into different places of work. Whether we have this discussion of inclusion regarding women in the film industry, it's important to give others the opportunity to prove themselves in the way that men so often are. And these powerful women and the directors share are a great example of how hard work and different perspectives can only make an industry better. While filmmaking is not a career I want to pursue professionally in the future, I will always have a passion for creating videos and short films. Learning about how certain industries lack diversity has taught me, and hopefully you, the importance and influence of having equality and diversity in different occupations. I wanted to thank you for your time and wanted to remind you that taking initiative and pushing through harmful stereotypes only implements change and encourages others to do the same.